And really my question is that we have had varroa mites, and I still regard varroa as the biggest problem that we have in modern beekeeping. And I've been working with that for more than 30 years, and we have still not solved it. And why is it like that? This is a very nice stolen graphic that I found on the internet, and I hope still that Patricia Aldea will make her talk and presentations for you people about climate changes and the effect on honeybees. Bottom line is that it's a fact that we have climate changes, and bottom line is that in Denmark over the last many years we have had an increase in the temperature of more than 1.5 degrees, and it will increase even more. What does it mean, especially on the side of varroa? And already here I can show you the first effect. I've been working in Denmark for more than 30 years, but I also did work in Norway for 1 year. And if you see this graphic here, it's a beekeeping year, and you can see the dots here is showing how varroa mites are developing in Denmark during the season. It's just a graphic that I make. You can see the development of a bee colony like here during the season. And then when I was working in Norway, I was wondering what is going on here. The Norwegians, they had far less problems with varroa mites than we had in Denmark. And the explanation is very straightforward. And again, I claim climate changes, that our winter disappeared more or less, or it's not so cold anymore. And that means that in Denmark, we do have brood during the whole winter. But in Norway, where I worked, I mean, they have very long periods with minus 10 degrees, meaning no brood in the bee colonies. And that meant also that the varroa mite has very, very big difficulties to develop during the season. So this is simply the difference between a warmer Denmark and a very cold or colder Norway. And the Norwegians already along the coast start to have the same problems as we have in Denmark, since the temperature is also rising there. And this is a phenological wheel that's taken from a German publication. What you can see in the top here is actually from 1961 to 1990, that the winter had a period of 120 days. And if you go to this period, the winter has simply been shorter. And that means that the blooming of flowers is starting earlier. Big problem in Denmark because we have oilseed rape, and we need to have winter oilseed rape, and we have to have our bee colonies ready far more earlier. The summer season is getting much more intense, and actually we are lacking proteins in the fall. But just to show you that you can do beekeeping in Denmark, we are 6,500 beekeepers here. And yeah, our country is as flat as a pancake, and it's a 60% farming country. And if you come in May and June in Denmark, this country is totally yellow by the oilseed rape. This is a graphic. I got some data from an old beekeeper, and he's very, very skilled beekeeper. And those data are a little bit old, but just to show you that we can harvest honey in Denmark. He had an average honey harvest of 65 kilo per year over 20 years. And what we see is that our flow and our honey harvest is not getting smaller over the years. And one of the things that we have noted is that in former time, the trees, you could say tilia, you could say castagna, other trees really did not give a good honey harvest. Maybe we could see a little bit years in between, but really not. But the last 5 years, like tilia here, certainly started to give nectar in Denmark, and I believe this is because we have warmer summers. And what you can see over here, I hope you can see, that's heather flowers from the western part of Denmark, where we have big heather areas. And normally beekeepers in the old days, they said, yeah, we get a proper honey harvest from the heather, let's say every 5th or every 10th year. And we really talk about a good harvest is 15 kilo. Over the last 5 years, we talk about heather honey harvest of a size of one box, 30 kilo, 40 kilo. So certainly also this has exploded in a way. Why do we also have problems in Denmark? Or this was not a problem. This is, we have a hive log program that we developed, and you are welcome to use it as well. It's for free. I will show it later on, where beekeepers, they do put in the apiaries. And this is Zealand. You have Copenhagen here, where we will have the Apimonte Congress in 3 weeks. And I'm living approximately here. All the dots are beekeepers showing where are my apiaries. And I have to tell you, this is maybe just 1/3 of all the beekeepers that did put dots in here. And here you can see this is my nearby area here. I'm working down here, and you can see how close the apiaries are to each other. And that means that in my country, very, very affected by neighbor beekeepers, let's say, that are not treating, colonies are breaking down, and we then get the famous reinvasion of varroa mites into our colonies. We also have another problem. You can see here, that's what I call nectar availability during a season. And it starts very nicely in the spring, and it peaks with the oilseed rape. And then suddenly we have kind of maybe 2 or 3 weeks every summer where there's really no flow or very little flow in our country. And that means that our bees are living in a kind of a desert. Again, remember, we are a monoculture country. 66% of the country is a farming country. And that means that the bees actually in the summer do have a period where they suffer of hunger, so to say, and that also weakens the bees. To look at the winter losses now, which is very nice and important, and this is the Scholars Network, and I can see Yuriy, he's here, and Maria is here, and maybe others as well that are taking part in this winter loss survey, where we ask beekeepers as citizen scientists, how big were your losses? And really, I really try to encourage also the Ukraine beekeeper, please support Maria and her team when they're asking you about this information. You can see we did that for many, many years. We looked on the winter losses, and there's really one thing that's a little bit special. You can see there's a pattern. Kind of every 5, 6, 7 years, we get a major peak of losses, as you can see here, 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 and here. And then suddenly over the last, again, 5, 6, 7 years, our winter losses has been more or less constant high. That's a change in comparison to earlier, where we had years with very, very low losses. So this is very concerning, what is happening here in Denmark, and I'm sure it also happens in other countries. So major problem is varroa mites. I just want to show you here very, very fast how we treat for varroa mites in Denmark. We use organic acids and we use biotechnical methods. That's what we recommend, and we really have developed a very nice system. Treatment in springtime could be drone brood, could be an oxalic acid trickling. We make an August treatment. It could be formic acid, it could be thymol, it could be oxalic acid strips. Then we actually make what I call an in-between treatment, kind of in October, just to get the number of mites down. And then we have our very important oxalic acid trickling winter treatment. We have all the tools that a beekeeper needs to keep track on his bee colony, and nevertheless, we still have problems with winter losses. And this is a very nice work done by Per Krüger, our scientist at the University of Aarhus. He got a lot of samples from different beekeepers and see what happens. He surveyed them for viruses, acute bee paralysis virus, black queen cell virus, chronic bee paralysis virus, deformed wing virus type A and B, and suck brood. And what you can see here is that we find viruses in quite a lot of our samples, and especially in bee colonies that are officially looking very healthy. We see deformed wing virus type B, which is the more aggressive virus that we have. So the virus load in our bee colonies over the years are really increasing. And I just want to show you this very nice publication also done by the Colors Monitoring Group. It's the winter losses, written in Danish, from 2019 to 2020. It was more than 37 countries taking part in that. That's very, very nice. And here I can show you this was the year where Ukraine did very, very well. I mean, winter losses that were very, very low. And again, Denmark, we have rather big losses in that year again. And we had answers from, I think, more than 200,000 bee colonies. Maybe it was 300,000 bee colonies. And conclusion was actually the bigger beekeepers had lower losses. Yeah, we could say they're more educated, they're more routined. Also beekeepers that were doing migration, moving to better places, to good nectar places, to good pollen places, had lower losses. And then what we are very focused on in Denmark is replacing your queens, always having young queens in your colonies. So please support Maria and her team when you're making this. So now we found out also, this was on an island many years ago. We found varroa mites there, and then we encouraged all beekeepers to give them a formic acid treatment, and then we had an insert in the bee colonies. And what we found out were really that when we counted the mites in the bee colonies, that we had colonies with very, very few mites, and then we had bee colonies with a lot of mites in them. And this is really the take-home message today, is that in our strategy, and what we have done wrong is that we kept those colonies alive, we kept those queens alive, we kept those genes alive that were susceptible towards varroa mites and that could not fight the varroa mites in a good way. And this is really also the take-home message of my talk from that time, is that we never removed the mite bombs out in the landscape. We simply kept the bad colonies, the bad queens, the bad genes alive. And that's one of the reasons why we really do not have tolerant bees on different places. So we need to educate beekeepers, make them more responsible towards what they're doing. They should become better beekeepers, and they should even also work on getting better bees. Problem in Denmark, high losses, is the high colony density. It's really the re-invasion, but also the increase of beekeepers. We have kind of not doubled up, but maybe 30% more beekeepers than some years ago. The re-invasion, the virus load, and the beekeepers are really not consistent in treatment. They do a pretty good job, but they really do it not consequent. The climate changes, and I hope Patricia will talk about this. And then, which I'm really not talking about, is agricultural monoculture and the agricultural use of pesticides. And luckily, Shefi made a very, very nice talk about what we find in our environment. So the very last thing I want to show you is a tool, and we have made many tools, online tools. And this tool has the name varroamodel.dk, and it's also available in English. And here you can really play, and you can modeling your varroa treatment strategy that you're using. What you can do here, and you have to play with it. It's really not difficult. You can click the graphs on and off as you want, and then you can add different types of treatments. Here I made 2 types of drone brood removal in the bee colony. Here I made a formic acid treatment in the colonies over here, and down here I made an oxalic acid trickling in the colonies. And you could see that I played with it, and I said this one is starting with 25 mites in the springtime. And then the model is really calculating how is your colony doing, and you can see you're ending out with more mites than you started. I mean, this is not a problem since the mite load is so low here, but you really have to reconsider and play with that again. Should I add a treatment, one more treatment? Should I do it earlier? Should I do it later? Please, everybody, that's an invitation for you to work with this model and kind of understand what you're doing. And you can put all types of treatments in here. And luckily, since my voice is disappearing, I also want you to invite you all to use our online tools. And please take a picture of this, a print screen. This is all our electronic hive scales that we have in Denmark. This is our hive log program, where you can put in information on your activities, what you're doing in your bee colonies. This is our bee disease recognition online tool. This is our beeplants.eu, actually run by Chef and the Better Bee Project. It's a very, very exciting one. You're all invited to try to use it out. And then we have the last one here, that's the varroa model, which I would really prefer to use on your computer instead of using on the cell phone.